All right, here's a really cool piece that we just coated with Stone Coat Countertops. This is an old cultured marble vanity with an integrated sink. We're going to show you all the steps necessary to do your own cultured marble vanity with your sink in place. We're going to show you all the tips and tricks in this video from start to finish. Check it out, and you can visit us at stonecoatcountertops.com. Enjoy the video. Hey guys, Mike here with stonecoatcountertops.com. Today we're going to do a really fun project. We're going to take this cultured stone vanity that has an integrated sink bowl attached to it, as well as an integrated backsplash, and we're going to show you exactly step by step how to coat this the right way with Stone Coat Countertop epoxy so that it'll last long term with your sink in place. It's really fun. Let's get started. The first thing that you're going to do is you got to remove the flange here that the tail piece of your vanity is attached to. You're going to reinstall this later, but because the epoxy will actually go down and drip through your sink, you don't want that tail piece attached to your drain because the epoxy will go right in your drain. You don't want that attached, and you don't want the flange attached. You go ahead and put a bucket or something underneath to catch the drips from the epoxy, but get rid of that flange first. The next thing that we're going to do, we're going to clean this countertop really well. The first thing that we use is TSP, trisodium phosphate. We use that to degrease it and get rid of all this dirt and grime. This is a really old, nasty top, so it's got some buildup on it. Let's go ahead and we'll just spray this down, and we'll wipe it up here. I like to use TSP before we actually sand, so that you don't sand the dirt and grime into the surface. I just use regular blue shop rags to go ahead and wipe this off, but you can see that it cuts that grease really good. We'll just get this thing nice and cleaned up and ready to sand. We get this question a lot about the integrated sink bowls, and so that's why we're making this video, so that you can learn exactly how to do this, and we're going to take this old nasty counter and turn it into something just really cool. When you are running into an integrated sink and an integrated backsplash, the coloring becomes a little bit more tricky, because with the Stone Coat Countertop epoxy, it is going to follow gravity, and so we have to mitigate some of that by pre-adding some color, which we're going to show you in this video how we do that with some spray paint and some different effects, so that everything looks right and it doesn't jump out at you that this was done after the fact or something. It'll just make this counter look really classy and neat. All right, boy, that was dirty and greasy. All right, we got that clean. Let me wipe it down one more time. What I like to do too, just to remove the residue, is I'll use some windex. And the reason we like windex is it doesn't leave a residue. It's just a great all-purpose cleaner after you've used the TSP. Okay, the next step that we're going to do is take our 150 grit sandpaper, and we're just going to rough this top up to create a tooth or something for our bonding primer to really bite to. The bonding primer will stick to this glossy surface, but we want to help it, and we want to give ourselves insurance. So let's go ahead and sand this up a little bit. Okay, we got this all sanded down with 150 grit sandpaper. Feels completely different than when we started already. Now we're just going to go ahead and take the windex one more time, and we're going to wipe the dust off and get this ready to apply the bonding primer. So our next step is we're going to apply our Stone Coat Countertop bonding primer, the same stuff that we sell right out of our store. And this bonding primer, it is tenacious. It just makes our Stone Coat Countertop epoxy adhere to things like Formica and solid surface and cultured stone and granite and all these other really hard, slick surfaces. It's what you put between the Stone Coat Countertop epoxy and your original surface. It's really what helps it bond really well. So go ahead and use that, and I'm going to show you. You don't need a lot. It's meant to be on a very thin coat. One of our 8-ounce containers will do about 35 square feet or so. You don't need a lot of this material. It's actually meant to go on really thin, so let's do that. We're going to go ahead and do this in silver. So let's get started. I'm going to use our silver base color tint, and we're going to paint this. And you don't need a real thick coat. We're just going to put it on pretty thin. We'll let that dry, and we'll come back here and start our first color coat. We're going to do our color coat of Stone Coat Counter Epoxy over this, and we'll make some really neat effects in it and show you how you can do the integrated bowl and everything together. Okay, so our base color is completely dry on this cultured marble vanity, and now what we're going to do is we're going to add some undertones or some accents with our spray paint even before the epoxy goes on. Now when you're doing an integrated sink or an integrated backsplash, this technique is crucial. The reason it is because if I just put color into the clear epoxy, it's going to run off these vertical areas and go away. And it's going to retain on the surface. So a lot of your coloring and a lot of your beautification is going to be done before the epoxy ever starts. We are going to add some color, but we're going to limit that color to make this look correct, or else you don't want a really fancy top surface here and then have all of it drain down where it kind of washes out on the backsplash in the sink. So let me show you how we do that. And all we're going to do is we're just going to use some classic colors. We've got silver, we're going to do black and white. Let's go ahead and get going here. And I'm just going to fog some of this color just right on this surface here. Just fog it on there. You don't want to be too far away, but you also don't want to be too close. So you can see I'm just getting some of it into that backsplash. I'm going to get some of it in this sink. Get the front of the sink too, so everything matches. I don't like this line here, so I'm just going to fade some of that out a little bit. There we go. Now let's go ahead and hit some white over that. A little bit more black right here. Make sure you get your edges too. You don't want those just to be plain. Fog a little bit more white over that. And you know what? Let's just add a third color. We're going to add a touch of this metallic rust. Just a little bit, just to give it some more realism. Yeah, I like that. There we go. I like that. I like that rust. Okay, this spit out a little bit here in some spots I didn't like, so I'm going to go through and hide some of that with some white and black. Yep, you start layering those colors and it looks more realistic. There we go. I think I like it. What do you think?
Looks good.
Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll come back and start our first coat of epoxy. Okay, our accent spray paint is all dry, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to coat this, and when we do our first color coat on something like an integrated sink, we're not going to put it on quite as thick. We're going to do a little bit thinner so it wants to hug the edges a little bit tighter. Not too much thinner, but we're actually going to brush most of it on here. So let's go ahead and get our material out on the surface. If you haven't seen our video on how to mix this product, go watch How to Mix Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy, and that'll show you exactly the right way to mix it so that everything just comes out beautifully. All right, so we got some on there. We're going to brush this out, just move it around. We're going to get that backsplash. Just start making this look really good. And it's amazing what just the spray paint undertones will look like. And again, because it's an integrated sink, we're going to, most of our color is already on. Got a little bristle in there. We'll get that out. So I'm just brushing this out. We will definitely use our trowel on our second clear coat, but we don't need to have a lot of epoxy running off when we do our color here. We don't want it all running out of the sink. So I'm just going to keep it a little bit thinner than normal. You see how cool that's already looking there. Okay. What this clear does is it really locks in that spray paint too. You would never want spray paint to be in a sink. It wouldn't last, but when you put our Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy over it, it lasts very, very well. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fog a little bit of white over this fresh epoxy, and then we're going to chop some of that in to give it kind of a marbled effect. And we'll do a little black as well. Okay, let's chop that in. And again, we didn't use a lot of spray paint, just a little bit, and that's just going to give it a really neat look when we're all done, because that undertone has given us most of our look. But this will give us some suspension of color in the clear epoxy. Because we have colored this sink, it's going to match. It's not going to look way different than the surface. I'm just going to get in here and chop this and move this around. This product really self-levels nice, so not a lot you can do to mess it up. All right. Just going to brush some of this out. You can see how it's starting to run down these edges. What you really want to do is just baby that along a little bit. Just use your brush and just baby this along. So a really cool thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of heat this up to help it drip, just to keep a nice thin coat on this sink, but it'll make it look really even. Yeah, this epoxy is definitely flowing, but it's leaving it just really, really smooth here. that works really good just to smooth it out. It got it all downhill where it is. You can see some of that color fading, but it looks very natural that way. I like that. Awesome. All right, we're going to let that sit, and we'll come back here and do another coat after this dries. All right, we've come back to this piece, and the first coat is thoroughly dry. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sand this top in preparation for the second clear coat. And one thing that you're going to have sometimes on this particular piece, we did do a little bit thinner coat because of the nature of the sink, but the second coat we're going to do with our square notch trowel as normal. And because it was thin, we have a few little dots here that the epoxy is just very thin, or because of the surface tension, it kind of wants to spread. And that's a normal thing, especially like on a seal coat with wood slabs and that sort of thing. We also have a little bit of that right here. And so what I'm going to do is show you in the second clear coat, I'm just going to add a little bit of spray paint just right in these sections and chop it with the piece. And you don't want to add a lot of spray paint with your second coat because you don't want you want the epoxy to flow, and you want some of those pigments and tints, they will affect some of the flow out. That's why we do our second clear coat. But just in case you want to add a little bit of color here and there, I'm going to show you how to do that. You could also add a little bit of metallic, but that gets a little more tricky. So we'll show you an easy way to fix little dots like this. So I'm going to show you what I like to sand with in between coats. You can either get a maroon Scotch-Brite pad. Those do a really good job of deglossing the material, and so you can see just by using that Scotch-Brite, it works really good to degloss it and get you ready for your second coat. This is another great little tool that I use. It's just a handheld foam block to hold 5-inch sanding discs. It's Velcro back. It's really convenient, and I really like it because it does a really fast job. You can use a random orbital, but the reason I don't like to is because sometimes you'll burn through the edges or the high points, and because of this no drip edge here and things of that nature, I just like to do it by hand so I have a little bit more control on those edges so that I don't burn through them. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep sanding this and just get this all ready for my next coat. All right, after you've sanded, just make sure you use a clean rag and just wipe that excess dust off. There's not a lot from the sanding, but just wipe it out. Get it ready for your second clear coat there. All right, what we're going to do now is we got our epoxy mixed up. We're going to trowel it out here on the surface, and then we're going to brush it in that sink bowl. One thing that we did on the first coat that worked really well is as we got the color in there, I used a torch and I really warmed the epoxy up in this bowl so it would flow down and go out of the drain, and it made a really nice even coat after I brushed it on. It got rid of all the brush marks and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and add some material here. Put a little bit in this bowl because we're going to use a brush to get most of that in there. And let's go ahead and trowel this around. I'm going to stick my bucket here and catch it out of that drain. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm just using that trowel just to trowel this out as we normally do. Little vanities are kind of tricky to trowel, but it's no problem. All right. It's a neat little project for when you have a remodel that you just don't want to spend a ton of money on remodeling the sink, or you don't know how to replumb a sink and things like that. You know, it just salvages your old cultured marble, but it may not look so good. It may be yellowed or discolored or something wrong with it, and this is just a really neat way to revive that and get some more years of use out of that. You'll get a lot more years of use out of it. That trowel's a good way to apply it to that backsplash too if you need. All right, now I'm going to get my brush and chop this out. Then I'll show you that trick of how to hide those dots. Okay, make sure your brush is debristled. get some of this that's flowing down there. We're just gonna start painting this around right now before we lose it out of that drain. The bowls are a little tricky, but that torch really helps. So just get a nice thick coat on this. Now because we don't have color in this, it's not going to show a bunch of runniness, so that's why we add it thicker. And boy, that already looks just awesome. Just looks awesome. Wow. Okay, we're going to chop this out to hide our trowel marks. Got a loose bristle there, get that out. Get this backsplash. Use some of what's kind of pooled down here and put it back up. All right. Brush these edges. Because of that no drip edge, you really need a second coat, or else it's just too prominent, and it kind of, you know, the first coat it'll be a little rough and things like that, but once you do the second coat, it really lays out well. Chop our trowel marks out here. We don't need to chop that sink because we already brushed it. All right. Beautiful. Okay. Man, see, those dots don't even look bad now actually, because the clear coat goes over them. It just looks natural because of our base color. But I'll show you anyways. What I would do is just spritz a little bit of black over that. We could even put a little bit right there in the sink, and we'll brush this in here, or just chop it right in. And now it marbleizes right over that like our undertone did. Just chop it in here a little bit, move it over some of this drip, and you're good to go. It wants to flow really well. It's best to do it and then torch this and walk away. Yeah, that blends right in. You don't notice that anymore. We're kind of thick here where the backsplash is. Let's just take one more coat and just brush this backsplash one more time here. Those verticals don't want to retain the epoxy, so just brush them a couple times. You know they're going to be thinner on the edges in the backsplash, but we're just showing how to do this. All right. Now you can see how clear it is. We mix it, it gets pretty white because of the air in there, but as it starts to lay out, it really clears up. Let's go ahead and torch this. You don't want to torch the backsplash a lot because it'll all run right off. And I'm not going to torch the sink a bunch because it's flowing nice. It's doing what I want it to do. I like this. All right, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video of how to do Stone Coat Countertop epoxy into a cultured marble integrated sink top. Really love how this came out. It doesn't look like the old white cultured marble anymore. It looks really good. Proud of this little piece. We're going to let that dry, and then in about 48 hours to 72 hours, you can replumb the sink and start light use of the product. And then it's going to be really cured in 7 days and fully cured in 30 days. So this just came out really, really great. I love how it flowed out. 2 coats was plenty. Follow the directions, but don't follow the colors. Make up your own colors, make up your own scheme, and you could really come up with a palette that matches your space and goes with your home. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to give us a like. That really helps us out. And go down and comment for us and let us know what you think of this project and any other future projects you'd like to see. We'd appreciate your feedback. And thank you to all of our customers who go and send us pictures. Your projects look amazing. Those the reviews are great. Thank you for sending those, and please keep doing that for us. Until next time, you got this from StoneCoatCountertops.com.